Hey everybody, Michelle here from Gardening with the Landscape Connection, and I am at my house today and we are going to talk about landscape design. It's one of the questions that I get asked a lot, and I try to remember back in the day when I really didn't know a whole lot. I mean, I knew what I knew as like a hobbyist landscaper and somebody who would plant things in the garden or things that my dad taught me, but I never really knew how to put a landscape design together. So today I'm going to talk about my process and what I do to do that, and whether it's right or wrong, it's just what I do, and maybe you can learn a little something that will help you in your landscape design as well. So I'm going to preface this by saying I do not have a degree in horticulture. I do not have a degree in landscape design, landscape architect, or anything like that. I have a degree in the life of hard knocks. I have learned as I have gone along in life, and I have learned from other people. If someone could teach me something, I was all about learning it. I can remember when I first started out, and the very first design that I ever did on a CAD program, which is where you drew the design on your computer. And back in the day, you had to like build everything from the ground up. There were no take a picture and superimpose things over the top or have a 3D program where the CAD pieces were already there. You had to build this thing from scratch. And it would take you like 8 hours to do one design. And I can remember the very first one I ever did, and I was so proud of it. And I go to the client's house, and you know, I have her before picture there, and I cover up the screen, and I have like a piece of paper over it, and then I pull it apart, and I'm like, ta-da! Like, look at me! And it was horrible. She's like, where are the bushes? Where are the trees? I did the whole thing pretty much in perennials, and it was like, I bombed totally. Now, she was the most gracious lady I've ever met in my life, and she let me go back and redo it. And I had been a landscaper for maybe 2 weeks when I took that on, and I learned very quickly what I didn't know. And so I would spend a lot of time trying to learn the things that I needed to learn. So I would watch videos. I went to the library and got books. I became a master gardener and went through their whole class, and then learned lots and lots and lots from other master gardeners. Then I started teaching classes for the retired senior citizens at our local college, and you learn a lot by becoming a teacher. You really become a master sometimes at what it is that you need to know, because when you get up there and teach, you want to be very credible about what it is that you do. And then over the years, you know, I just learned more and more and more as I went. And so what I hope to accomplish today is to share with you guys some of the things that I've learned about landscape design. And I'm not the end all of everything, but I can put together a pretty decent landscape, and maybe some of this will help you as well. One of the things I encourage you to do is go out and take pictures of where it is that you want to put your landscaping, and then pay attention to that area as we go through the winter. Now remember, the angle of the sun is different in the winter than it is in the summer. It's a lot lower in the sky, and you have a lot less sun during winter than you do during the summer. But you can still get a good feel for your area as you kind of pay attention to what's going on. The other thing to keep in mind when you're looking at your landscaping this time of year is that there's no leaves on the trees. So places that you think are sunny might not be sunny once the leaves are on the canopy. So take that into consideration as well. So when I start a landscape design, if I'm starting with a blank slate, I don't know when I've ever started with a blank slate. I think more times I'm babysitting a dog. Yeah, this is Kaya. She's a big baby. This is my daughter's dog. They went to Disney World, and we are dog sitting. Huh? And you've been bad. Huh? You've been a bad dog. We have coyotes in the back, and so when the coyotes come out, Kaya is like, oh, whoa, 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 and she's all night long just howling and whining because she wants to go out and play with the coyotes, and we're like, no. Yeah, you kept me up all night long. Yeah, it's just a good girl, though. I think more times than not, I get a hot mess. And either somebody inherited the hot mess, or they created the hot mess, or they thought they were making something wonderful and it just didn't turn out the way they wanted it to. Thus, they call me, and I think the number one thing that I did when I was a landscaper was garden restoration. I did a lot of revamping of gardens and revamping of spaces when I was in that particular field. So one of the things that I always used to ask my clients, and I think this is a question that you have to ask yourself, is what kind of garden do you want? Do you want a modern style? Do you want clean lines? Do you want minimalistic? Oh, you're okay. Do you want it to be more traditional or rustic, or what is the garden style that you are drawn to? And how do you know? Well, think about what pictures when you're looking on the internet, you're looking in magazines, you're looking on Pinterest. What are you drawn to? And that's going to kind of tell you what your style is. Is it cottagey? Is it more formal? And you're going to know. All right. The other thing you want to think about are what are your favorite colors, or do you have favorite plants that you want to incorporate into your garden? Because if you do, you definitely want to get those in. Also, you have to ask yourself and be very honest with yourself about how much, now some people call it maintenance, I call it gardening. How much gardening or maintenance are you actually willing to get out there and do? I've taken some pictures of my garden in different areas that I want to kind of vamp up next year. And what I'm going to do after I talk about kind of all the things I want you to think about is I'm going to put some pictures up of what it looks like now. I have things that have been cut back that are in place, but I'm going to like just kind of go over like what I'm thinking as far as where would I put different things in the garden to either revamp this garden or change this garden a little bit? Or for me, I'm trying to make my gardens a little bit lower maintenance. So I'm changing to more what I call high impact, low maintenance plant. Not every bed that I have will be low maintenance. There are still going to be those beds that I want to mess around in every single year. I want to change out the color, whether it's by putting different color annuals in it or trying different plants or new plants. I'm always going to have beds like that I'm going to mess around with because I'm a gardener and that's what I do. And I love to do it. Now, the other thing to think about besides the sunlight is where is this garden that you are putting in? Is it north, south, east, west? What does the soil quality look like? Does it have good drainage? Does it hold water? Later in the season, as the ground thaws, as we start to head into spring, I'll show you guys how to test for drainage, how to do a pH test, how to find out, do you have good soil quality, and how do you add amendments to it? And so we're going to talk about and do all of those things in the spring because I'm going to break ground on a couple new beds that I want to do. And while we're doing it, I'm going to show you all of those things. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is where are you viewing this garden from? Are you viewing it out a window? Do you walk through it every day? Are you putting the garden someplace where you can actually enjoy it? And if you don't have any gardens at your house, or you're limited in what you can do based on budget or time, maybe you have to pick one garden at a time. I had clients that I would go to their house every single year and work on a different bed, and it took me like 5 years to finish the whole entire project. But by the time we were done, everything was done. It was within their budget, and they learned how to take care of one bed at a time, and it wasn't so overwhelming doing everything all at the same time. So that might be a good strategy for you as well. The other thing that's really important, and this is important, is you really do need to establish a budget because you can really spend some serious money on landscaping, and not everybody has, you know, $5,000 to spend on a garden renovation. You might have $200 or $300 and you need to stretch your dollars as far as you can. And that's where you might have to walk around your yard. Are there things that you can split, things that you can move around? Do you know people that will share plants with you? Also, look for sales because there's a great way to get perennials when there's sales. A lot of times they'll get really leggy in the pots and then the garden centers will put them on sale. I know I do, but there's nothing wrong with them. All you have to do is cut them back, get them in the ground, give them a little fertilizer, water them, and watch them grow. As long as you do those things, you can find some great sale plants that way too. Is there a co-op in your area where you can buy smaller plants by everybody putting in together to get like a big order? The other thing is when you think about the plants that you're going to put in, are you trying to attract pollinators, butterflies? Are you trying to create a bird garden? Or are you trying to create a habitat for wildlife? So it could be the other end of the spectrum too, where you're like, I'm trying to deter deer. I don't want deer to come into my yard, so I got to plant things that the deer won't eat. Also, you want to think about what does your landscape look like all year long. Here in the north, we go through 4 seasons, and I have to think about, you know, what does my garden look like in the winter? Because I want it to look pretty in the winter too, and not just in the summer, the spring, and the fall. So I garden for 4 seasons of interest. Not only do you want color on your flowers, that really isn't the first thing that you should look at. I look at the plant. What does the plant structure look like? What does the leaf structure look like? The color of the leaf? What is the shape of the plant? Do I have to do a lot of maintenance to make it look good, to make it keep looking good? So it might require some homework on your part to find out what you need to find out for what you're putting in your beds. The other thing is, remember, right plant, right place. I'm sure you've heard it before, but if it goes in the sun, plant it in the sun. Don't try to plant it in the shade. It's not going to grow well. And if it's a shade plant, don't put it in full sun. It'll burn up. So do what the tags say. So that's why I like to think about what it's going to look like and design it first. So I'll take pictures and then I might use markup on my computer. I'm going to use my design program and I'm going to show you that as well. But you could certainly just draw over the top of your picture and just use colored pencils on there and to show different colors at different times. So make sure you have things that are blooming throughout if you're going to use perennials. And last but not least, I'll say that I see this a lot. I don't agree with this, and that is a lot of times when builders are building houses or homeowners are putting in garden beds, they make those garden beds 4 feet wide, and that is not wide enough to put a shrub in and have it grow properly so it's not growing up on top of your house, under your foundation, or to the full size that it can get. A plant tag is on there for a reason. If the plant tag says it's going to get 10 feet, it's going to get 10 feet. And just because a plant tag says it's a dwarf, that doesn't mean it's going to be 2 by 2. A dwarf on a lilac could be 8 by 8. Think about how big a lilac gets. A lilac can get 15 feet. So a dwarf, yeah, that might still be 6 or 8 feet tall. And for you, that still might be too big. So read the tags and know how big they're going to get. Make sure you give them enough room to grow full size. So the other thing is if you're going to be doing some heavy duty digging, make sure that you call the utility company to come and flag where all those utilities are. So make sure you do that so you don't hit your utility lines. At the end of the day though, this is your garden and plant what you love. And you know what? The other thing is you're going to plant some things and it's not going to work out. I guarantee it. It's going to happen. And that's okay. Just move it or try again, or you plant something you don't like it. I've done it plenty of times. Be willing to say, I don't like that, and be willing to take it out of your garden and get rid of it. It's one of the things when I talked about my wins and my fails this year that I said I was going to do. One was no plopping of stuff into the garden this year. And 2 was if I didn't love it, I wasn't leaving it in my garden. So I'm taking stuff out that I don't love and I'm putting stuff in that I do love. Let's go do some thoughts on design. I'm going to show you some pictures and then kind of put some other pictures on top of it, and I'll kind of talk you through what it is that I'm thinking. I'm not saying that this is the right way to do it. This is just the way I do it. Okay guys, so what you're going to do first is go take some pictures of your area and then look at your area and assess. What do you love? What don't you love? So as I look at this area here and I swing it around, I love a lot of things about this bed. I like the evergreens that are in it. I like my 3 boxwoods. There's one here, and one there. I'm not in love with this yew, so I might be taking that out, but I do have 2 bird's nest spruce. I have one here and one on the other side of the yew, and I'm actually loving those. I have a ginkgo tree here, and I'm keeping that. And I did have a sand cherry that was right back there, and one of my guys cut it back through a miscommunication. And now that it's not there, I'm kind of thinking I like it not there. So I don't know. It's still there. We'll see what happens. I don't know. It's going to be probably this stumpy growthy thing that comes up in the spring. So I don't know. I might just pull that out. What do I love and what don't I love? What do I want to keep and what do I want this bed to look like? You need to ask yourself, what's the function of the bed that you're renovating, and what are you doing and why are you doing it? What are you using it for? All right, this picture is of the front of the house, and this is the bed where we did the garden renovation back on October 10th. I will link the video down below so that you can check that out if you want. This bed was really a hot mess. I pretty much pulled everything out of it. There's still ground cover. There's still some other things in here, but we'll see how that comes up in the spring. This is the bed that I want to do the design on. Now I'm going to use a design program called Landscape Pro, but you could certainly take a picture and just use markers and colored pencils or markup on your computer to go ahead and create a design look that you're going for. The other thing is this bed is all clay. So I do have to pick things that are clay busters because I'm not going to go through and re-amend the bed with compost now. I do top dress with compost, so I'm starting to build the soil up, and I will backfill some of the items that I'm putting in the bed with compost as well. This is the part of the bed that we're going to focus our design on today. I think the other side I want to do like an annual planting next year and kind of just play around with that. And so I'm only going to be doing the design on this side. Now, I want to make sure that I choose things that are clay busters, and I also want to choose things that are going to incorporate 2 of the 4 colors that I'm missing in this bed. So over here I have a lot of yellow and a lot of green, and I'm kind of missing that red and that blue or a purple hue or something like that. So I'm going to be making sure I add plants in that hit both of those criteria. This is also going to be considered a part sun bed. It only gets 4 to 6 hours of sun because the sun is traveling over the house. And once it's like, I want to say 11:30, then what's closest to the house is in the shade. So I'm going to make sure I pick things that can handle that as well. All right, so I tried to label everything that's in here so you know what's existing. I am going to take out the yew that was in here, and it was in between the bird's nest spruce. Now, I just don't like it. I think it's misproportioned in there. Even though I like the yew itself, I'm just going to move it to another part of my garden. And I have like 3 hostas. I do like those hostas. I got them from my dad. I don't know what variety they are, but I like them, so I'm keeping them. I do have a winter gem boxwood here, the 2 bird's nest spruce, and a ginkgo tree. And then as you can see behind the ginkgo tree, we have a bed of Coreopsis. It's the Zag Rib variety. It gets these little yellow flowers on them. And if I shear them back after they're done blooming, I'll get another flush of yellow flowers later in the year, more towards like the beginning of September. And then beyond that, I have some yarrow, which is the Coronation Gold. And I chose that one because it's not as heavy a spreader as some of the other ones. Now, I don't have the sand cherry in this picture because there is a sand cherry behind that Coronation Gold yarrow, and it got hacked back by mistake by one of my guys this last year through a miscommunication. And now that it's not there, I'm actually thinking that maybe I want to put an evergreen there instead and pull the sand cherry out. I don't know that it's going to really recover and grow into the beautiful shape that it was, and I would rather move it and maybe let it try someplace else and put in the bed what I love, because that's one of the things I said I was going to do this year. The other thing is I do want to make sure I incorporate some of the other colors that I'm looking for, so let's take a look at what I'm thinking as far as, you know, what I want to put in the bed. I do have enough room along the back edge of the bed to create a foundation planting, and I think I want to do spireas. This is the Double Play Doozy Spirea by Proven Winners, and this is the perfect size for me to put in there. The bird's nest spruce don't get very high, but they get wide, and so that is great because then I can put another layer behind them. And this is going to incorporate some of the colors that I'm looking for, the reds and the pinks, because this bush only gets 2 to 3 feet high and 2 to 3 feet wide, so it's the perfect size to tuck in there. And I measured it off to give enough space for each of them to grow full grown, still have room for my hostas, and still have room at the end to put in an evergreen. I could put 4 in, and I would do them in a row to create that foundation planting along the edge of the bed. Isn't that beautiful? That is the Double Play Doozy's flowers. When this thing emerges in the spring, when it starts to get its leaves, they're like this deep dark red. You're starting to get your flowers probably towards the beginning of June, and they're going to emerge like this red purple, and it just keeps on blooming and blooming and blooming. It's non-invasive, it's deer resistant, it doesn't set seed, so it doesn't spread all over the place. The other thing is because it doesn't produce the seed, it just keeps blooming nonstop all season long, and that's why I want it in my bed. Also, it is only going to be 2 to 3 feet high and wide, and I don't have to worry about it growing bigger than I need it to. It's what I call definitely high impact, low maintenance, because it's going to do everything I need it to do. It's going to grow in the clay, and I only have to prune it once a year. So there you go. There's my low maintenance. So I love this one. We're putting this one in for sure. We put the spireas in, and now I'm thinking I need a blue, and I really, really want a blue globe spruce. So I'm thinking that I'm going to put one in, and I'm going to put it at the end of the bed where the elevation is a little bit higher so that I can create like a backfill there that is some really super nice compost, build it up a little bit so I've got good drainage, because this is the one plant, the spruce, that doesn't want to sit in clay. It wants good drainage, and if I want to have this, I'm going to have to create an area that has good drainage. But oh, isn't that gorgeous, that blue? And then, now in this picture, I put the sand cherry in. So if the sand cherry grows up, this is kind of what it'll look like there. And I'm like, am I loving that? Do I love that? Because then the next picture I'm going to show you, I put an evergreen in there, and I really like that better. So I actually think that is what I'm going to do. Now, I also, in the front of the border, put some Veronica. I really like Veronica. It is that part shade perennial that is absolutely gorgeous. It's got those beautiful purple spikes, and I have chosen to use Wizard of Oz, which is from, again, the Proven Winners series. So let me tell you about the specs on that, because this thing is fabulous. I have some in the back. I love Veronica. Check that out. Isn't that gorgeous? Again, part sun to full sun, 14 to 16 inches high, like 18 to 22 inches wide. It's growing in zone 4 through 8. And when the flowers start to fade on this thing, you can give it a cut back and it's going to rebloom for you. So I love this. And I'm going to do like a mass planting. So I might do 5 or 7, depending on how much room I have, because they are going to get 18 to 22 inches wide. So I want to make sure I space them well and they have room to grow. But I'm going to do this kind of at the bottom of the tree there. And as you can see, I have a little bit of a curve that comes out from the tree. That's where I think I'm going to put a pot and add some annuals. I think that'll be great there. This is the same picture. The only difference is I took the sand cherry out and I put an evergreen in. And I'm thinking about doing a soft serve. This is a fall cypress. Now, the fall cypress will grow in zone 4 through 8. And over time, it's going to get 6 to 10 feet tall and 4 to 5 feet wide. I want to try and see if I can find maybe a little bit of a bigger one, because they are slow growers. So you can find one probably in a 3-gallon can if this is something that you like. But it's got this really soft, flowing, drapey texture to it. I just think it's so beautiful. And it's the perfect size to put right there. And I really like that evergreen color back there. It kind of gives your eye a place to rest. Instead of having another color, it just draws your eye through and then it kind of like stops the bed. So I really like that. And I think that is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to dig that sand cherry up, move it someplace else, and then see if it recovers wherever it is that I move it. The other thing I like about the fall cypress, this soft serve, it's from Proven Winners. Pretty much everything I'm picking for this bed is going to come from Proven Winners, but some of their plants are so awesome, so how can I not pick them? It's going to grow in zone 4 through 8. It's going to get 6 to 10 feet tall. It'll grow in part sun or full sun, 5 to 6 feet wide, and it is really adaptable. It really wants well-drained soil, but that's down there where I'm going to put that blue globe spruce, so I will be raising the bed a little bit down there, amending the soil, but I think it would probably grow in the clay as well. This is a nice tree, and it doesn't require any pruning. So there you go. Beautiful green, 4 seasons of interest, and no pruning. We love that. I will fertilize it once a year in the spring. It will love to have some food that will help it stay healthy. And the one thing is I wouldn't put this out in the middle of nowhere. So this is going to get a little bit of protection from the harsh winter winds that come from the north because it's on the east side of my house. So this is one that if you don't want to like struggle with not having winter burn on it, you want to keep it someplace protected. In between my yarrow back there and the coreopsis, I need to add a purple. So the yarrow is going to be taller, and then I need a medium-sized plant that can handle being in between the two of those. So I have chosen to do an allium, and I'm either going to do Millennium or Serendipity. Either one of those are really good choices. The Serendipity is one that's from Proven Winners, and the Millennium is one that's just, I think you can get that one pretty much anywhere. And I've been growing those for a super long time. They look good all the time. The foliage always looks good. Even in the winter, if you leave them up, they look good. Now, this is a picture of the Serendipity. So either one of these is going to have pretty much the same characteristics, whether you use Millennium or Serendipity. The Serendipity is by Proven Winners, and it gets these purple globe ball flowers on them that are absolutely gorgeous. But the foliage looks good too. It's this really dark green, and it kind of comes up and it spikes. It attracts bees and butterflies. It is deer and rabbit resistant. They're going to grow in zone 4 through 8. They're going to get 15 to 20 inches high and 10 to 15 inches wide. And what I love about these is they look good all the time, and they are blooming later in the year. So when I have the yarrow that blooms early, if I give that one a little haircut, it'll rebloom as well, and so will the coreopsis. So by the time this allium is blooming, the coreopsis will probably start to bloom again, and the yarrow will be in bloom again. So that will be absolutely awesome. I love that I'm going to have a later bloomer, because that's one of the things that I'm looking for too. I'm looking for things that have long blooms, or I'm looking for things that are going to bloom throughout the whole entire summer and not just in the spring and then the show is over. I'm sure you also noticed in that picture that I had a heuchera in there. So this is the heuchera wild rose. It is also from Proven Winners. Now, heucheras will grow pretty good in clay soil, and I've had pretty good luck with it. Now, what I'm finding with heucheras, though, is some do better here than others, and I haven't grown this one. I tried the wild berry, and that one for me was like hit and miss as to whether or not it would take. So I'm going to try this one and backfill with some compost and see if it does a little bit better. But I want kind of maybe a softer purple color. That wild rose is like in your face purple, which is gorgeous. But here I think I want it to be a little bit softer. So I'm going to use this heuchera, which is the wild rose. And again, this one is also by Proven Winners. And what I love about it is the softer color, but it's only going to get 8 to 10 inches high. It's got a wider spread, which is like 18 to 20 inches. So I can probably get away with only putting 3 in the bed. It's going to grow in zone 4 through 9. And what I love also about heuchera up here is I don't cut mine back. I leave it up through the winter and then I just clean it up in the spring. They do pretty good here without cutting them back. And I find that if I cut them back, I have trouble getting them to really come back every spring. And I have better luck just leaving them alone. So this one here has upright dark burgundy stems on the flowers that come up. And then the flowers are like this rosy pink flower. So that's a really nice combination. And I think I might leave those up and maybe have it create like a screen that you're looking through. I thought that might look nice. And if I don't like it, I can just cut those flowers off because you really grow heuchera for the color of the leaves. Here's a final picture of how everything looks. And you know what? I don't think I gave you the specs on the blue globe spruce. It's growing in zone 3 through 8. It gets 3 to 4 feet high, 4 to 5 feet wide. It's a pretty slow grower. It also will maintain that pretty blue needle on there all winter long, but the blue gets a lot more vibrant in the sun. And this is further out in the bed, so it's probably going to get more like 8 hours of sun out here, so that's going to make it look absolutely gorgeous, and it's going to draw your eye down there. I can't wait to put this in. Now, this is my rendition of what I want my bed to look like, and I'm hoping that when I put it in the spring, you know, it's not going to look like this, and everything's not going to bloom at the same time. But I've made sure that I've got my 4 colors in there. I've incorporated, I already had yellow, I already had green, I added another green, and then I'm adding the blue globe spruce, and I'm adding the red and the purples with the perennials and the spireas. I also made sure that most of this stuff is pretty low maintenance. Now I have to go out and cut some flowers back, but I'm okay with that. And I only have 1 shrub that I put in that I have to prune 1 time a year. So I love that as well. I think everything goes well together and it is layered down. So it takes some thought to think about what it is that you want to do, but I think that if you do some homework and put it out on paper or use markup or use something to kind of create that layering of what it is that you're looking for, you can create a design that you love. Now, this is the second time I've done this bed. So obviously, sometimes you hit a design that you don't love, and then you have to revamp or rethink what you're doing. Now you can see in this picture, I did put a bird bath in the middle of the bed where the U is. That's the one thing I'm still not 100% decided on. Do I want a bird bath? Do I want a fountain? Do I want a statue? Do I want to put another shrub or perennial or something else there, or a pot? I don't know. That one, I'm going to let that kind of just think about over the winter to decide what it is that I want to do there. All right, you guys, there you go. There's a little bit about landscape design and my process of what I do to go through it. I do go through all of those questions and ask myself all of that. Now, I know I made that look really super easy, but I mean, I thought about what I wanted to put in there, and I did a little bit of homework before I chose the plants and the shrubs that I put into this bed. So those are part of the things that you need to do, but it's also some of the fun things that you get to do when you're planning. I will be doing some more garden designs as we progress through the winter. Some of them I'm going to do on paper so that you can see how to do it on paper too, because not everybody has a computer program. I know that I am also going to be breaking ground on a new bed this year, so I'm excited about putting that in as well. And we have a couple more that we're going to renovate. If you have not subscribed to my station, please do so below. Leave your comments or your questions. I would love to help you if I can. Also, share with your friends, like our videos, and make sure that you keep on gardening or planting because it's wintertime. Bye, guys. See you in the next video.